Hello everyone. Welcome to Clarity 1631 Feature Supportability Training. This is Denise Saladay. And today I'll be covering the topic Data Warehouse. This release, we've delivered a new capability called Instantaneous Sync that is available for Postgres and Oracle environments, but it's not available in MS SQL yet. And what it does is it will sync data between the Clarity transactional database and the data warehouse in near real time. And it will cover most of the updates that you make within Clarity. Additionally, in Modern, under Administration in the Attributes grid, we've added two attributes that will be available for all objects in that grid. The first one is Data Warehouse and Data Warehouse Trending. And those attributes prior to this release were only available for viewing in Classic Studio. Also, we added the investment risk factors attributes into the data warehouse. And the last thing we did is we added the checklist object along with relevant attributes into the data warehouse. One thing that you need to be aware of is that the instantaneous sync feature for the data warehouse has been released in beta in 16.3.1. In my demonstration, I'll show you how to enable instantaneous sync, and we'll see how it works in action. And next, we'll view the new attributes that are available in the Modern Attributes grid for the data warehouse. And last, we'll discuss the enhancements that we made in the data warehouse. In Classic, under Administration, System Options, we have a new property that we added this release called Enable Instantaneous Sync. After you upgrade, this option will be unchecked, so it'll be toggled off. And if you want to enable it, you have to check it. But prior to enabling it in new data warehouse environments, you have to run a successful data warehouse full load job. No additional security rights are needed to toggle this job on or off, and it leverages our existing BG service. It's currently not available in MS SQL environments. When it's enabled, it'll allow you to synchronize your data between the Clarity transactional database and the data warehouse in near real time for most updates you make in Clarity. For example, if you data warehouse enable an object or an attribute in Classic Studio for the data warehouse, it will synchronize relevant Clarity schema updates. And that's for both out-of-the-box and custom attributes and objects. And if you have a historical object, which you recently data warehouse enabled, it will capture the historical data and sync it along with the object. And if you make changes in Classic Studio to add, modify, or delete objects and attributes, this process will also capture those schema changes. In this release, we have limited ZOG support, and that'll be strictly within the project area. But most changes that you make in ODF will be captured. Along with those schema changes that I mentioned, it will also synchronize the object and attribute instance data whenever it's insert, updated, or deleted within Clarity for both out-of-the-box custom objects and attributes. And as you would expect, it'll include data regardless of whether it's updated in Modern or Classic. When data is updated via a job or a process, we only have limited support for that, and I'll go into that in more detail shortly. To demonstrate this capability, I navigated to the Projects grid, and for the Project Able Payments module, I'm going to change the manager from Paul Martin to Paul Burks. And to see the instantaneous sync in action, I navigated to a copy of our Investments out-of-the-box data provider, which I made and copied it as my investments. And we'll go into the Preview tab. And notice here for my Project Able Payments module, the manager is now Paul Burks. Remember that data providers can only access data in the data warehouse, not the Clarity transactional database. So it's an easy way to verify the data instantaneous change in the warehouse. Now I'll cover some of the gaps that are not updated via the instantaneous sync. The first one is the instantaneous sync does not update any of the data warehouse fact tables. Instead of that, it's updating our new SQL curves, which you have to have enabled under Data Warehouse System Options in Classic. Now our data providers use SQL curves and not the fact tables, and these are the values that show up here under the per period metric section anytime that you're building data providers. We recently added SQL curves as an alternative to fact tables in the warehouse for their improved capability and their better performance. It's important to remember that the instantaneous sync job will coexist with your existing data warehouse load job. So if you have the instantaneous sync enabled, it will process your incremental changes as they're made, and the data warehouse load job will still process changes whenever you run the job for any changes that weren't processed yet by the synchronization job. The instantaneous sync will not process the following changes that you make within Clarity: fiscal time period changes, and there are some investment attributes that won't be captured, baselines, user or resource updates, time entries whenever they're added to timesheets in Modern, scalars and metrics, TSV updates from the time slicing sync and the time slicing jobs. Again, those will be captured in SQL curves whenever that capability is enabled. Any data that's updated via jobs will not get synchronized. And we have limited Zog support right now. So if you're using ODF, the only thing that we're updating when you make changes in Zog is the projects and some of its children, like tasks, team, assignment, risk, issue, and change data. But if you're making Zog updates using gel scripts for direct database updates, they're not going to be captured for instantaneous synchronization. We do plan to close some of the gaps that I just mentioned in the future, but for now you can run your data warehouse load jobs, which will pick up all changes. Another change that we made is in Modern, in the Attributes grid under Administration, we added the two data warehouse attributes, data warehouse and data warehouse trending, for all objects and attributes that appear in this grid. Before this change, you could only see those values in Classic Studio. And in the grid here, they're only read-only, so you can't update them. So you still have to go into Classic Studio to update either of these attributes. And currently, filter or group by is not supported for them. We also enhanced the data warehouse to include the risk factors on the investment object. And you can see here that they're enabled for the warehouse because they're checked. The old risk factor attributes on the project object are still in the data warehouse for any customers who are still using them. And lastly, we enabled the checklist object and any relevant attributes for the data warehouse. And this concludes supportability training for the data warehouse. Thank you. Thank you.